So, Microsoft is entering that more budget field with the Surface Go, and today your Apple Sheep's taking a little peek outside of the walled garden. He's found the gate, he picked the lock, he went outside it for a little bit, now he's experimenting with what else the world has to offer. And overall, I just gotta say that with the Surface Go, Microsoft is really close. Overall, I'm not ecstatic or excited about the Surface Go after using it for a little while now. It's not all bad. It's definitely not a terrible, disastrous product, but it's incredibly hard for me to recommend it to anyone. So before we get into some of my problems I have with the device, I want to talk about what I like about it, because there are definitely some things the Surface Go gets right. So similar to the Surface Pro, I love that they come with the kickstand. The fact that outside the box, you can literally just flip this stand out. You don't need to buy some smart cover. You don't need to buy some keyboard in order for it to support itself is really, really convenient, and I think they nailed it there. That's important. It's really nice that they did that. It's very handy, and it makes me jealous because iPads still do not ship with any form of own support system in case you just want to like watch a show and have the iPad sit there. Gotta spend more money on that smart cover, and that's annoying. Overall, I think the build quality of it is very nice, especially matching with the type cover. When it's closed like this, it's a very soft fabric on the outside, complements the unibody of it well, and especially in this position, it's a very clean, very minimal design, and I like that in a product. It's when we open it up that things start going wrong, but hold on, let me finish. The Surface Go starts at $399, which is the cheapest I've ever seen a Microsoft Surface device, which is really great that they're finally breaking into that budget market. So now Surface has an entry product for things to compete with the budget iPad, as well as Chromebooks. Now Microsoft is in that field as well. I'm really glad they're doing that. That's good for them. I happen to have the upgraded version, however. I have the 8 gigs of RAM, as well as the 128 gigabyte storage option, which actually retails at $550. So it's quite a bit higher for that extra storage and that extra RAM, which you would think would make the device run a lot better, but I still ran into some problems. Anyway, the first things I did with the Surface Go was just use it as a tablet. Originally, I bought the type cover with it, but I did not connect it. I kept it away from the Surface Go, and I tried to use it just like this. And while it's cool that they adopted USB-C and they've got 2 forms of charging because it actually ships with their MagSafe style Surface dock connector, which is really cool that they're keeping around MagSafe, and it's a very thin charger. Charges decently fast, as does USB-C. But you may notice right off the bat that the bezels of this device are not particularly thin, which isn't a major problem when you're making a budget product, but it is just a little bit noticeable in 2018 when a device has such noticeable bezels, whereas most markets out there are trying to kill those as quick as they can. But these bezels do incorporate 2 front-facing stereo speakers on the front, which is really nice. This device is definitely intended for landscape use. It's got the camera up at the top with Windows Hello. Of course, the kickstand works this way, and while you can use Windows 10 in the portrait mode orientation, I really do not recommend it, and you probably shouldn't do that. So I enjoy the speakers, enjoy that they incorporated USB-C, I enjoy the price, I enjoy the kickstand. It's great that they have upgradable storage with the tiny little micro SD card slot at the bottom, but eventually you have to turn on that display, and once Windows 10 starts running, that's where I run into most of my problems. So first of all, this does ship with Windows 10s. You can switch it to regular Windows 10, but you'll see why in this video I didn't switch it to Windows 10 Pro, because S is supposed to be the speedy version. It's supposed to be the fast version, the version where apps open faster because they're all optimized through the Microsoft Store, the version where boot up times are faster, and overall 10s is just supposed to be optimized Windows 10. The compromise being, of course, you can't install regular Windows apps, you can't install Steam or Origin, even Fortnite, I know. But it's very apparent from the second that you turn on this device and just start setting it up that they really, really intend for you to have this with you as soon as you unbox the product. If you didn't catch my unboxing video, the second I turned this thing on, it immediately was starting to tell me, like, type things in the keyboard without showing the keyboard. It was assuming you were going to press the keyboard button, which is just a little extra tap, but while that may not seem like a big problem, it stacks up over time. Over time, every single time you want to access the keyboard and the virtual one does not pop up, you have to keep reminding it, or you have to keep pressing that text box again. By the way, I need to type here, I need to type here, I need to type here, and the disconnect between the virtual keyboard and what's going on the screen is very noticeable. There are many times where the keyboard will be there and you can type into it, but because you did not type search on the search box, you're typing on a virtual screen keyboard and it's not showing up in the search box, so you have to tap it again. And like I said, there are a lot of tiny little problems with the Surface Go that, like, single-handedly does not ruin the product, but I think if you have enough of them and they start stacking up, you start to go, why am I using this? this? Why is this better? I'm a very comfortable iPad user. I've been using iPads for a long time. So I like to disclose my bias with you. You guys know I'm an Apple sheep. You guys know what I'm used to. In coming from an Apple sheep iPad user's perspective, I'm really in this video trying to not let the ecosystem affect my decision. I'm gonna pretend that doesn't exist. I'm gonna pretend you don't have an iPhone or an Apple Watch or anything like that, because just from a go by the numbers, just go by the how fast is this device, how fast can you do the things you need to do, just by running the numbers and just looking at the facts, I still think this isn't really worth your money. So I can be doing very simple things on my iPad, and that's what I compare with the Surface Go. And by the way, for this video, we will not be comparing the Surface Go to an iPad Pro because that costs a lot more. We'll be comparing it to the $330 2017 iPad, not the 2018. So you might be able to find this iPad for cheaper now. This is a year-old product versus this, which is yet to reach a month old. And when doing something simple like playing a YouTube video, by the way, both of these devices being shown are connected to the same Wi-Fi, the iPad will show up and just be really snappy and just be a little bit faster, which again, single-handedly is not a reason to buy the iPad, but when switching to a Surface Go, you start to notice this lagginess, like the device is one step behind you at every step of the way. Type the search box, where's the keyboard? Typing on the keyboard, it's not seeing the search box. Not that it's Microsoft, not that it's Microsoft's fault, I'm not trying to blame them for this, but there isn't a YouTube app on the Surface Go, which means that if you don't buy their $130 type cover, you're kind of stuck with using the desktop version of YouTube, but with a touchscreen, and it is not optimized. You don't have your tap to skip options, you don't have your playhead that's very easy to scrub. Because there's no mouse on the screen, all of the controls fade away and they're waiting for your mouse to hover over the display again, but you're using a touchscreen, so it's not really optimized or realizing what it's doing, or the fact that, hey, by the way, Surface, there's not a keyboard connected, so stop acting like there is one. You know, basically anytime there's a search box on the iPad, it immediately pops up, the virtual keyboard. Swipes up really fast and the keys are there, they're ready. The iPad keyboard is also very optimized and very fast. The keyboard is a bit more roomy with the aspect ratio of the iPad, so your keyboard can be a bit more spacious and not take up as much content. And also, if you want to type things like numbers on the iPad screen, you can swipe down and the numbers will activate very quickly. If you want to do that on the Surface Go, you kind of have to hold, wait for the number to appear, and then select the number. And no matter how good you are at typing on a Surface Go virtual keyboard, you cannot be as fast as you can on an iPad's keyboard, especially if you want to do those quick commands to access the numbers or other characters that are not being displayed. Not to mention that even if you want to use the argument of, well, the Surface Go, it's not really built for doing video editing or advanced gaming of any kind. Like, sure, you can run Minecraft, there's that, but even when launching a program like Microsoft Word compared to Apple's Pages. I know no one wants to use Pages and everything's about Word, but just the second you open them, Pages is ready to go and ready to launch your documents. Whereas when you launch Word on the Surface Go, even though you're signed into your Microsoft account, they're immediately like, well, by the way, better start your 30-day free trial because Microsoft Office ain't free. Google Docs is free, Apple Pages is free. And you'd think that when you're buying actual Surface hardware, like you're spending $550, maybe you should get like a year unlocked version of Microsoft Office. Like, hey, you can just open Microsoft Word and it starts working. It's not immediately like, what's your product key? Installing software on the device, but then expecting you to also pay for it out of the box. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's some coupon code in the box that I didn't see, but even if it's in the box and you can activate that code already, it's still another step you have to take that I don't notice you having to take when you set up an iPad. You signed into your Apple ID, there's your Pro apps, they're waiting for you. So like I said, in terms of specs, this is rocking a Intel 4415Y, which is definitely, in my experience, not the best CPU, and by no means is the 2017 iPad have a good CPU either. It's getting up there, but it runs things fast. Apps launch quick. We're doing these things on the iOS 12 beta, mind you. This is beta software that's actually working much more reliably, sadly, than Windows 10 S is. See, I was just looking at the Surface Go as a basic device that could do some text processing, get some work done. So I download Messenger, right? My fiance's out of town, I want to text her. I send her about 2 messages before the app freezes. This is Windows 10 S. This is supposed to be the faster, optimized version of Windows 10, where all the apps are verified by Microsoft to work on all Surface devices and all Windows 10. So you'd think when the software is verified by the distributor and they made the hardware themselves, you wouldn't run into problems this fast, especially with 8 gigs of RAM. Messenger froze and I could not send the message I was trying to send. So I was going, enter, enter, please hit enter, enter. And the app did nothing. So eventually I just had to turn it off and go back to texting her on my phone because the app's not working. I'm not asking for much here, right? Like if you spent $550 on a device and it has Messenger on its app Store, you'd think that Messenger could, like, work. About 10 minutes go by, and then the message sends 12 times. So while my fiance may have thought that I just really missed her and I was hitting send over and over again, no, I had to explain that my device was freaking out and I didn't mean to spam her. So little things like that definitely kept stacking up. So using it in tablet mode was not ideal, it was not fun, it was not optimized. So eventually I said, okay, this experience is not going as well as I would have liked because I'm rooting for Microsoft here. You know, we just got the Pixelbook because I wanted to do a video explaining, okay, here's how you don't do a hybrid 2-in-1, and then I was gonna get the Surface Go and say, okay, this is how you do a 2-in-1. This $400 Surface product is way better than this $1,000 Pixelbook. That was kind of the theme I wanted the next week to be. Sadly, I can't really confirm that because I've been using this guy a lot and it's not much better. There's a lot of things, like I said in the beginning of this video, that the Surface Go gets right and I'm happy about. But the fact that the optimized full running software version of Windows 10s can't even handle apps like Messenger being open and that freezes and that crashes, I have to kind of bring up how silly it seems given iPad already has the price advantage. iPads, even the budget ones, have thinner bezels, actually a better overall display if you look at the tech specs on the Surface Go, 1800 by 1200, which has a pixel density of 217. Compare that to the $70 cheaper iPad and you get a 2048 by 1536 pixel resolution at 264 pixels per inch. So more detailed display, thinner bezels, and cheaper, so you even got money left over to buy a smart cover or a Bluetooth keyboard that's gonna cost like 20 bucks to pair with that iPad, and you'd still be under budget compared to the starting price of this guy. So then, of course, once my tablet experience was not going well, I decided to dock the type cover and see how the experience goes with what they're advertising it with, because long ago when I was in the attic, I reviewed the Surface Pro 4. I did not get the type cover with it. I just used it as a tablet, and same old story, didn't go too well. So I get the type cover, I dock it. I like the feeling of the type cover. I love how compact they're able to make the keyboard on here. I'm not really a fan of physical keyboards, and I'm also not a fan of the idea of you buying a product in the company expecting you to also spend $100 later. One thing I'm not a fan of about the Surface Pro is that they say, hey, it's only $800, but you really better buy the $100 Surface type cover, which is the same story here. Now, don't hold that against me to the iPad Pro Smart Keyboard because I've never bought that thing. I've tried it at Apple stores. I don't like the iPad Smart Keyboard. I think that's a bad purchase. It's way more complicated than this keyboard and more expensive, so don't try to say that I'm biased and say that, well, if Apple made this, you'd love it, because Apple does make this, and I hate it, and I don't buy that. So anyway, I'm not a fan of the small keyboard style, but I was willing to kind of adjust to it and learn how to use this more accurately, and that's where the Trackpad came in. So this thing arguably makes me question what is a laptop and what is a tablet, which we just did a video on, because at this point, we, yes, have a laptop with a broken hinge. Just imagine this came with the product and it was undetachable. Okay, we've got our keyboard, our trackpad, and our monitor. They're docked together, you flip it open, it's a laptop. Only difference is the bottom of the device can't support itself, and you constantly have to activate the kickstand in order to get it to stand upright. So this is how you adjust it instead of just a laptop where swivel the display back and forth, which is actually a lot more intuitive than this design, opposed to having like floppy keyboard and kickstand back here. Well, it does work. I don't find it ideal, and this is where a lot of the bias comes in. And no, I'm not talking about the apple sheep walled garden, I'm talking about people with psoriasis. For those of you who don't know or are questioning why my nails look so weird, I have a skin disease where my body makes too many skin cells. It's a fairly common disease, it's genetic. I was born with it, it's annoying, it means Touch ID doesn't work. But the problem here seems to be that I cannot really use this trackpad efficiently at all. Every about 5th click I'll make with the trackpad, it will suddenly be a right click and I'm not double clicking, which gets extremely annoying when you're trying to use this device on a daily basis, when you're clicking and clicking, and every once in a while it's like right click, and I'm not trying to right click, but it keeps happening despite that. So the best way we found to demonstrate this problem is with Minecraft, actually. See, I am just clicking the trackpad in this video with my pointer finger, okay? No 2 fingers. So that means that I should only be hitting blocks in front of me. I should not be placing wooden blocks, and yet that's what keeps happening. Randomly, I'll be clicking the trackpad in one way, and then all of a sudden blocks start placing. So you'll notice that there will be random spurts of right clicks, and I think this may have something to do with my psoriasis, because when my friend uses the trackpad, he doesn't really have that same problem. Maybe he's used to clicking trackpads differently, but I've used MacBooks before. I used a MacBook for 2 years exclusively, and I've used trackpads before. I use multi-touch displays, and I don't have this problem with anything made by Apple. Or on the Pixelbook, when we're reviewing the Pixelbook, pencil book, I click around on the trackpad, no problem. So something is different and special about the Surface Go type cover keyboard that means me as someone with psoriasis cannot use this trackpad for some reason. So I don't expect all of you to take that into consideration, because most of you out there probably do not have psoriasis and probably won't have this problem, but you guys should know why my bias against this product is developing, because I have a personal defect that this type cover is not okay with, and I can use other trackpads, other devices out there that I don't have that problem with. This is the first time I've ever had that problem with a trackpad. Other tiny little issues with the type cover kept stacking up as well. When I'm trying to click, the top piece of the type cover, even though it's on the trackpad technically, it'll stop clicking if you bring your finger all the way to the top. So this is whether you have psoriasis or not. I'm just pressing down and the whole keyboard warps and there's no click sound you'll hear. So when I'm in the main part of the trackpad, you can hear the click, but when I go up higher, you notice that there's no clicking sound. So just the top of the trackpad doesn't click, so it makes me wonder, why is that part of the trackpad if it doesn't click? Why is it there? As well as the fact that I think if you're paying $130 for a type cover, shouldn't it have like a simple magnet on the inside that knows when you're opening it up? Repeatedly, it's just another little step they stack on top that, like a $30 iPad smart cover can do. You can open it up and the display turns on. It's going, oh hey, the user is opening it up, let me turn on. Same with a laptop. When you open up a laptop, the display turns on. With this, you open up the type cover and you then have to click the power button, which as one step does not sound like a big problem, but over time it starts to stack up. Every time you open the type cover, also have to turn on the power button, and then you have to deal with the incredibly annoying cluttered lock screen. So I took this picture, right? This is what you see every time you look at the lock screen of your Surface Go device. It is cluttered with text, and some text is even overlapping itself, which kills me because the software is made by Microsoft and so is the hardware. How are these teams not communicating and realizing, oh, the text is going over itself? Whoopsie. Not to mention how cluttered and annoying this lock screen is, filled with things that really don't matter. And I'd love to hear about how I can customize it so it doesn't do that, and I can download such and such so the lock screen doesn't look ugly. But this is Windows 10s. This is supposed to be streamlined and optimized, and this is what's out of the box. So that's what I'm going to critique. In one corner, in top left, we have, would you rather be famous for good wine, fast horses, or stunning architecture? I'd like to unlock my device. Why are you asking me these questions? I don't search this stuff. Why is that just there? On the lock, why is it there? It also says, dismiss this lock screen, Windows, and that is over the top of other text saying, quick tip, to help protect your city from sea raiders, build one of these limestone forts. I don't care. Why are you telling me about the limestone fort? I did not select that lock screen. You selected it, and now you're telling me more text that's getting cluttered, and now text is over the top of each other. It's overlapping and it's annoying. I don't need that to be there. And also, I don't care about good wine or horses. But we're not done yet. Go to the top right corner. We get a camera icon that says, like what you see. No, I don't actually. The text is very cluttered and there's too many questions on this screen. Now you go down to the bottom right corner. There's more text. How likely are you to recommend Microsoft Edge Web? Oh my God. Why are you asking if I'm going to recommend Edge if I'm not even using it? I'm trying to unlock the device and you're asking more and more and more and more questions that are not relevant to the situation. I'm simply trying to turn on my Surface Go and it's got to ask 40 things. Then of course in the bottom left corner we have the standard date and time. Finally some like normal logical information. So I think you guys know I'm not a Windows 10 fan. I do use Windows 10 almost every single day. We have it boot camped on both of our iMacs and we use it for running games for our Tailosive Gaming channel. Though I'm slowly moving away from doing that because of how annoying Windows 10 is. If you love Windows 10 out there, I'd love to hear your defense for this lock screen because it honestly is infuriating. The face unlock with Windows Hello works sometimes. When it works well, it's really nice, but there are a lot of times it doesn't work, and Face ID on my iPhone 10 works so much more reliably than Windows Hello. There will just be random times without any pattern that this just doesn't work. I'll try to turn it on and it just says, nah, I don't feel like it. So that's definitely a little frustrating. And like I said, one of these problems by itself is not going to dissuade me from recommending the product, but there's so many little things that start to stack up and I always feel like I'm fighting the device and it's not working with me. I have to punch this thing repeatedly to get it to do what I want. There are also a lot of times where I'll be using the device and suddenly Trackpad won't communicate anymore to the mouse. Mouse is frozen, won't move. I'll be moving the trackpad around. About 10 seconds go by, then it starts moving. And I'm just like, What's disconnect? You're connected to the device. This isn't even Bluetooth. The mouse should be moving. If I'm touching the trackpad, you're powered by the device, you're connected to the device via a dock connection. What is the problem here? Tiny things like that start to stack up and up and up. And then by the time I get to this review process, I have got, like I've listed in this video, like 30 different problems with it that all sort of stack up and make it go, you know, this is a $550 device. The type cover is $130. So you're looking at a $700 device that literally cannot reliably send text messages. After that $700, it's still going to ask you to pay for Microsoft Office, and it's just impossible for me to ignore the fact that the iPad exists. You do not have to spend $700 on that iPad to get it to do very basic things. Not to mention, iOS App Store is much more rich than the Windows Store. Apps like YouTube, which are nice. Again, not blaming Microsoft, but you cannot deny that the iPad has that. It also has iMovie, which can edit 4K video. You know what happened when I searched video editing on the Microsoft Surface Store? The first app that came up, Intro to iMovie. These are the instructions for how to use iMovie. That was the first result on Windows 10s Microsoft Store. There looked to be some other video editing apps on here, but given that literally Messenger froze on this $700 8 gigabyte of RAM, 128 gig storage configuration, given it couldn't run Messenger, I didn't even want to try to edit on this thing. I said, no thank you. If you guys really have some great Windows Store optimized video editing, so don't bring up Premiere, let me know. I'll try to use it on this, but I'm gonna imagine it's not gonna run well. What runs well on this is like Twitter, when it uses full screen. When I open Twitter, you know, it immediately is like part of the window, whereas on the iPad, it takes up the whole thing. But don't worry, of course, there is tablet mode on Surface Go, and that's, yeah, that fixes a lot. Still got the taskbar at the bottom and everything. It runs Minecraft just fine, which is good, because if it didn't, I'd be scared. I'm sure it runs Asphalt 8 really well. So, overall though, knowing that I'm having these problems with a device that costs $550 before the type cover, and I'm running into these problems with 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage and this baseline CPU, I literally am having a hard time. Bias aside, okay? I'm not even going to pretend that the iPad is better because it has iMessage and AirDrop. I'm ignoring the Apple ecosystem here. Even if you're anti-Apple, anti-iPhone, you're all about that Windows 10, you have a gaming PC, you have a Galaxy phone, you have a Pixel, I don't care. This is just not worth it. You'd be better off spending $200 on a Chromebook, or if you're in this price margin for a tablet-like experience, seriously, get the iPad. That thing's gonna get way better updates. The lock screen's not going to be as cluttered. You don't have to spend $130 on a type cover. The App Store is optimized. Apps open better. The virtual keyboard works. If you hate virtual keyboards, buy like a $30 Bluetooth one, and then you can use it away from the tablet. You can set it up over here and then be typing over here. Just get like a $40 smart cover, stands itself up. It's no kickstand, but the kickstand, while it is nice on the Surface Go, by no means justifies the price point of this product and the experience I've had with it. So like I've said, I really was rooting for this Surface Go. I really wanted this to be good, and I was buying it expecting to use it as a slaughtering tool against the Pixelbook. But now I can't even do that, because as soon as this apple sheep strays from the garden, goes outside and sees what else the world has to offer, he finds the desert. He finds a desolate wasteland, and I kept hoping for an oasis. I kept hoping for a little bit of green or a little bit of water, but no, it's just dead, and it's just dry, desert, corrupted bullcrap. So sadly, that is why I cannot recommend that you buy the Surface Go. I'm really happy for you if you bought one and you had a great experience with it. You love your Surface Go, it works great for you. You haven't had any of the problems I've had. That's great. I'm happy for you. That's wonderful. But on the YouTube platform, I believe that the best thing we can do is tell people what our experiences are with each of our products, so that you, the viewer, get a wide range of opinions and a wide range of feelings about each device you're getting a review from. And coming from the Apple sheep, even ignoring the ecosystem and ignoring that the iPad is better optimized and flows better between macOS and iOS on the iPhone, ignoring all that, throwing all that outside, even if you're a hardcore Windows 10 gaming PC, Android loving guy, this still isn't worth it. This still is just not going to be a good product for your time. Hope that provided some insight and that it was interesting enough for you. Let me know what you think of the Surface Go down in the comments below. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you in the next one.